back. You thought that we had had enough of the first-time watches with the Fast and Furious first-time watch, but no. We had a little event known as Shocktober that we started last year, and we're bringing it back this year, but in a little bit of a new form because we've got, Chris, the sequel to the reboot of Halloween 2018 coming out this year. Halloween Kills, once again directed by David Gordon Green, and that got me thinking, I'm like, man, so if the Fast and Furious was like our Marvel thing, right, then I guess this is kind of like our DC thing, and that most of these sequels don't make sense. Almost all of them, like every new movie, happens to generate a completely new continuity, and then for some reason, fans keep coming back to it, and we're kicking that off as sort of a spiritual sequel to the end of our Shocktober last year with our watch of the original Halloween. We're kicking it off with the original 1981 Halloween 2. Chris, you got any thoughts before we jump into this?
All I got to say is go back and watch our first time, really, not first time for me. Dom's first time watching Halloween last year. He was in full character. I'm not going to tell you the costume he is, but it was pretty great that he mentioned DC at the top of this. That's all I'll say. So please go watch that and then continue to enjoy this series. We're excited to be back in the spooky months of the year. I can't wait, man.
Indeed. All that and more coming up next. Man, this is already getting me in the nostalgia.
It's great, man. They don't make them like they used to.
So, interesting thing about this movie in particular, before we get started, is that John Carpenter, even though he did not want to come back to direct a sequel, obviously the first one made so much money that they had to bring it back in some capacity. So he came back to write this movie, but not direct it. The classic reusing footage from the first movie for the sequel. Sequels used to do this all the time.
So classic.
Wow. Well, this certainly helped. Donald Pleasence aged like 3 years in like one cut. I gotta say, for a movie that wasn't directed by Carpenter, this still has a very Carpenter feel.
Yeah, for sure it does. And I love this shot we're looking at right now. It's just so classic.
That's not the same actress as the one that he killed in the first one,
No,
right?
it's not. Days when information traveled like so slow.
Yeah, right. At least they didn't drag that out too long. I thought that we were gonna have to go through like another like thing of like watching her like go to the door and then turn around and then walk around the house. But he got right to it. All right, he's being a little bit more efficient.
The movie has
Jesus, that is the biggest nosebleed I've ever seen. That kid should be dead. And this was before they established the thing of where Michael was Laurie's sister, right? Laurie's secret brother, right? Oh, wow. Oh, shit. Okay. God damn. Wow. Okay. So now I know where they got that from for the reboot.
Right.
They haven't even caught up with all the rest of Michael's
murders. Yeah, they're just playing catch-up right now.
Holy shit. Yeah. Worst cops ever.
Honestly, though, seriously, he's walking right there, guys. Aren't you supposed to be looking? There's two of you. You're riding with the partner.
Come on.
Grace, come sit on my face.
Wow. I forgot about that.
Wow. Wow.
Just because how many times has a shot like this been used in the horror genre, and this is where it came from. So it's just, to me, it's just cool. It's like
right, exactly. So directed Halloween Resurrection in 2002.
No way. That's cool.
Yep, Halloween Resurrection starring Busta Rhymes. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. I think that was the one where Busta Rhymes is the line, trick or treat, bitch.
I can't wait. Oh my god.
Just imagine the vast amounts of actors that were just lining up, waiting for their big break in Hollywood. And they finally got it. And then it was just to be killed off by Michael Myers.
Yeah, there should be a documentary. I love the green for no reason. Like, what's giving off that color right now?
Right? I mean, it is the night crew. You got to get your kicks in.
And I love
that
there's like one patient in the entire town.
So that's where Jason X ripped that one off of, but they did it in reverse. Because there he is. So this is pretty much where it's established. No, he's literally supernatural. Like, they're talking about demons and occults and shit. Okay. All right.
Hell yeah.
So that was Halloween 2. That was interesting. I'll admit. There were certain things in there that I was expecting, you know, just from this being a horror movie and a Halloween movie. There were certain things that I was not expecting, I will admit. And ultimately, I think, kind of succumbed to, I don't want to say, there were a decent amount of horror tropes in there. Obviously, there's a reason why, you know, the tropes are the tropes. Obviously, I'm not going to let my thoughts on that be any secret because, like, you know, there's a reason why I'm not the biggest fans of these types of movies. But for what these movies ultimately become, obviously, with how many of these sequels there are, or at least from what I've heard, this wasn't bad, honestly. It wasn't bad. It works really well as a part 2 is kind of a continuation of the first one, right? Since the first one kind of ends so abruptly. And I know for a fact that the new movies, you know, the reboots, obviously Halloween Kills and then Halloween Ends are going to kind of follow suit because I know that this new movie, Halloween Kills, is going to pick up literally right after the first one ended. But, like, you've seen this movie, like, more than a couple times. Like, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think it keeps getting better every time I watch it. I really think they're meant to be watched as a Kill Bill scenario where if you're going to do it right, at least maybe if you can't do it both nights in a row, like typically I'll do like when I'm just hanging out, getting in the season, I'll start my Halloween month off October with like, Halloween the first night, Halloween 2 the second night. Cuz you got to watch them in succession.
Right.
It's not a Carpenter directed film, but there's so many Carpenter isms and I think this filmmaker did a great job of capturing the essence as far as cinematography wise, the feel, the vibe, the setting of the first film. And I also really enjoy sort of like how Laurie Strode doesn't become the main character until the very end, until the third act, where it's quite literally, what these movies are famous for, which is that cat and mouse game between the two of them. And I just think it's honestly pretty brilliant. The only thing I really think the first film has a leg up on is just the the exposition that we already know and we really don't elaborate on too much in this one until the third act where we kind of get into the supernatural. I think really the first one, because it's the first, has the luxury of and it's just because of the nature of the horror genre, right? Like the plots, especially back then, weren't as thick as they might be now. Maybe like a Conjuring is got way more details going on than, but you wouldn't have the Conjuring without the success of Halloween. So I think the only thing really lacking in this one is just like the amount of depth at first, but then I think we quickly get enraptured with it because I'm really super into like the whole occult aspect and sort of everything they were speaking about in that final scene when they convince the marshal to turn the car around and they reveal that Laurie Strode is his brother. But I think it's a nice sort of companion piece, really, is what I see it as to the first film, which is so iconic. And I think this one is almost equally as iconic, although a bit forgotten, just
Right.
because I think again the writing did what it had to do, but it was kind of always in a tough place, you know.
I think probably my favorite aspect of this movie, just off the top of my head, is the fact I know for a fact that Carpenter obviously intended for Michael Myers to die at the end of the first one, and because the first one made so much money, the studio mandated that like he obviously bring it back around for a sequel. So I love how the third act he goes out of his way to like kind of do an fu to the studio by like literally having Michael get shot. Then in the face, and then he's swinging it around, and then he literally gets blown up, and he's still walking around. Like, he goes out of his way to show it's like, no, he is invulnerable, But, like, the thing I'll give this credit over the new ones is that this actually, like I said, my biggest problem with this entire franchise, at least, again, was the fact that they seemingly never explained how Michael Myers was invulnerable. But now it becomes obvious that, like, now after this one, yeah, it still doesn't explain how he got shot at the end of the first one and survived, but like at the very least, it's like, okay, so there was some occult stuff involved there potentially, and I know for a fact that the sequels do go more in depth with that. So, as far as final star ratings, it absolutely works as a companion piece to the first one. I don't think it necessarily works for me as well as the first one did, especially for this feeling like it's got a little bit more tropes in it than the first one did. It's certainly engaging. It's certainly very Carpenter-esque as far as, for this being a different director. It still feels very much like a spiritual successor to the first one. If you hadn't told me, if you don't watch the opening credits, like I wouldn't be able to tell the Carpenter didn't direct this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, these movies are still just not my cup of tea. So at best, only because there were parts where I was starting to feel like, all right, even though this is only an hour and a half, I'm starting to feel the length. I only got to give this 3.5 out of 5 stars ultimately.
Fair enough. Yeah. If the first one is a 5 out of 5 for me, this one is a 4 out of 5. And it's really only because of the situation that they were put in by the studio. I think they really made the best of it. I think these films are the best of the horror genre. It makes so much sense why the horror bubble was birthed after this era of horror films that we now have. And it's amazing that horror is where it's at because I think we've had so many great additions to the genre. But like you look back and you watch these movies and you think, yeah, these are the shoulders that these modern titans stand on for sure. And just every time I rewatch these first two films, I just realize, hey man, they're tropes for a reason because they worked so well in this movie that they literally set a precedent that's been now going on, like you said at some point in this watch along, for over 40 years.
Yep,
So
it's true. So that was our Halloween 2 first time watch. You guys can keep up to date week to week. This is going to be our new first time watch series. We're going to be doing every movie in between the first Halloween movie and the reboot. So that's Halloween 2 all the way through Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, because yes, that's right, we are indeed covering the Rob Zombie movies. It's going to be an interesting journey, to say the least. It's going to be a vastly different first-time watch than the Fast and Furious movies. So let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let us know how you're going to get in the mood for the spooky season this year. Be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. Be sure to click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you guys get notified every time we put up new content. Chris, where can the good people find you?
Yeah, they can find me in all the same places they can find our podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Christian Ivanko. Ivanko spelled Evanko. I make music, which you can find through that nifty little link in my bio. Just hit it and check it out. It's under my music. I think you guys will like it. It's on Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube, SoundCloud, and a plethora of other places. So please give it a listen. I would greatly appreciate that, as well as my other podcast, Talkin with Andrew and Chris, a show about life, music, and everything in between. Talkin spelled the same way we do it here on all the same platforms you can find the Talkin TV podcast. Again, available through the link in my bio. Hope you guys enjoy this Halloween horror watch along series, first time watch series rather, and I'm really glad you guys are here. So, but before I let you go, Dom, especially around spooky season last year, he was throwing out some really sarcastic stuff, if my memory serves right. But
Yes,
where
I
can they
was.
find you and get entertained? Because I think your social
Oh,
media
man.
feed is very entertaining.
I'm glad that you find it entertaining because, like I said, I don't post that often, but when I do, oh man, I let loose.
It's good when you do.
Well, I'm glad that you think so. At Movie Nerd Reviews on Facebook and Instagram. I think that social media should only be used for sarcastic posts and because people are getting just way too serious on there for my liking. At Movie Nerd Reviews on Facebook and Instagram. But more than likely, you can find me posting actually on our podcast social feeds at Talkin TV Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. You guys know what I'm going to say next. 12 seasons in a short film. Watch more fucking movies and enjoy this spooky season. We'll see you guys.